In the vast expanse of space, where stars twinkled like distant dreams, something extraordinary caught the attention of the galaxy's most advanced civilization. Deep within the Orion Arm, a region they had always considered unremarkable, their scout fleet picked up readings that made their most seasoned scientists scratch their heads in confusion. The alien observers, with their crystalline ships that looked like frozen starlight, had been monitoring Earth's solar system for centuries. They had watched humans take their first steps into space, launch primitive rockets, and build what they considered basic orbital stations. But today was different. Today, their instruments were showing something impossible. At first, they thought their equipment was malfunctioning. The energy signature they detected was unlike anything in their vast databases. It pulsed with a rhythm that seemed to echo the heartbeat of the universe itself, emanating from what appeared to be a single human vessel. The scout fleet's lead scientist, with skin that shimmered like morning dew and eyes that could perceive multiple dimensions, triple-checked the readings. Their most advanced sensors, capable of detecting the faintest whispers of energy across light years, were practically screaming with data. The source? A section of space near Earth's moon where a lone ship floated gracefully against the star-studded backdrop. The scout commander, having studied human behavior for decades, initially dismissed it as some sort of primitive weapons test. But as more data poured in, even their skepticism began to crumble. The energy readings weren't just unusual, they were breaking fundamental laws of physics that their civilization had established over millennia of scientific advancement. They watched in growing amazement as the human vessel moved in ways that should have been impossible. It left trails of what looked like golden light in its wake, not the expected exhaust from conventional engines. The ship's hull seemed to ripple with patterns that their most advanced analysis couldn't decode, like ancient symbols coming to life. The scout fleet started recording everything. Every movement, every energy pulse, every inexplicable phenomenon that surrounded this remarkable human creation. Their historians, who had classified Earth as a Level 2 developing civilization, were about to have their entire classification system thrown into chaos. As they observed from a distance, they noticed something even more perplexing. The human ship wasn't just moving through space, it was somehow interacting with the fabric of reality itself. When it turned, space seemed to bend around it like water around a stone. When it accelerated, it didn't just push against the vacuum of space, it seemed to dance with it, as if space itself was a willing partner in its movement. The aliens began to realize that everything they thought they knew about human technological progression was wrong. Their careful studies of Earth's history, their meticulous documentation of human advancement, their confident predictions about humanity's development timeline, all of it needed to be completely reconsidered. What made this discovery even more shocking was how quietly it had happened. There had been no warning signs, no gradual build-up that their monitoring stations had detected. It was as if humans had somehow hidden this capability, keeping it veiled until this very moment. The thought that a supposedly primitive species could have concealed such power from their advanced surveillance sent ripples of unease through the scout fleet. The commander of the scout fleet found themselves facing a difficult decision. Their civilization's protocols for first contact were based on the assumption that they would always be the more advanced species. But now, watching this mysterious human vessel challenge everything they thought they knew about physics, those protocols suddenly seemed inadequate. As the Earth ship continued its graceful dance through space, the aliens began to understand that they were witnessing more than just a technological breakthrough. This was the moment when humanity stopped being just another developing species and became something else entirely, something that would forever change the balance of power in the galaxy. The alien commander sat in their control room, fingers hovering over the communication panel. Years of training and protocols were clear about how to handle first contact with developing civilizations, but nothing in their extensive training had prepared them for this moment. After several minutes of intense discussion with their crew, they decided to follow standard first contact procedures, even though the situation was far from standard. They began transmitting the universal greeting signals, carefully crafted messages designed to be understood by any species capable of space travel. The response they received nearly crashed their communication systems. Instead of the expected simple reply, their screens lit up with streams of data so complex that their most advanced computers struggled to process it. The human vessel wasn't just responding, It was communicating in ways that should have been impossible for their level of technology. The alien crew watched in astonishment as their screens displayed mathematical equations they had never seen before. These weren't just advanced calculations, they were expressing concepts that their civilization had barely begun to theorize about. It was like discovering that a child you were about to teach basic arithmetic was actually solving complex quantum physics problems. Through their viewscreens, they could see the human battleship more clearly now. Its hull seemed to shimmer with what looked like living metal, covered in patterns that shifted and changed like waves on an ocean. When their senses tried to analyze these patterns, they found themselves looking at mathematics that went beyond their understanding. Equations that seemed to describe the very fabric of reality itself. The ship's design defied everything they knew about spacecraft construction. There were no visible engines, no obvious weapon systems, yet their instruments detected power readings that made their most advanced warships look like children's toys. The vessel's surface appeared to be inscribed with symbols that glowed with an inner light, pulsing in rhythms that matched no known energy signature in their vast databases. As they continued their careful approach, the human ship demonstrated its capabilities in ways that left the alien crew speechless. It moved with impossible grace, as if the normal rules of inertia and momentum simply didn't apply. When they sent out standard scanning beams to analyze its structure, the beams curved around the ship like water flowing around a rock, revealing nothing but causing the symbols on its hull to glow even brighter. The alien commander, with centuries of experience exploring the galaxy, felt something they hadn't experienced in a very long time: genuine awe. Their civilization had always prided itself on being the most technologically advanced species in known space. They had encountered many developing civilizations before, always playing the role of the wise, advanced observers. But now, watching this human vessel perform maneuvers that violated their understanding of physics, they felt like students rather than teachers. Their sensor operators reported readings that made no sense. The human ship wasn't just moving through space, it was somehow interacting with the fundamental forces of the universe in ways their science had deemed impossible. When it accelerated, it didn't push against space. Space itself seemed to move with it, as if the vessel had become one with the cosmic fabric of reality. The alien crew's confusion grew when they realized their historical databases had shown no indication of this technology's development. They had been watching Earth for centuries, documenting every step of human technological progress. How had they missed something this significant? It was as if humans had somehow hidden their true capabilities, waiting for the right moment to reveal them. As they prepared to establish more direct communication with the human vessel, the alien commander couldn't help but wonder if everything they thought they knew about humanity needed to be reconsidered. Their civilization had classified Earth as a developing world, one that needed guidance and monitoring. But now, facing this remarkable display of advanced technology, they were beginning to understand that humanity was far more than they had imagined. The commander looked at their crew, seeing their own mix of excitement and uncertainty reflected in their expressions. They were about to begin official first contact procedures with a species that had just shattered every preconception they held about technological development. Whatever happened next would change the course of galactic history forever. The truth about humanity's capabilities began to unfold in ways that left the alien civilization questioning everything they thought they knew. As their senses continued to analyze the human battleship, they discovered something that went beyond advanced technology. They were witnessing power that seemed almost magical in nature. The human vessel, which they now knew was called the Prometheus, didn't just bend the rules of physics, it rewrote them completely. The ship's hull wasn't made of any metal or composite material they could recognize. Instead, it seemed to be covered in ancient symbols that glowed with their own inner light, pulsing with energy that their most advanced instruments couldn't properly measure. When they finally managed to establish a stable communication channel, the explanations they received left them more amazed than before. The human crew, speaking with a calm confidence that belied their supposed technological level, explained that what the aliens were seeing wasn't advanced technology at all, at least not in the way they understood it. The ship's power came from something the humans called Mythic-Power, an energy source that their civilization had known about for thousands of years but had only recently learned to fully control. It wasn't about circuits and engines, it was about tapping into the very essence of reality itself. The alien observers watched in stunned silence as the Prometheus demonstrated its capabilities. The ship phased through solid matter as if it were moving through empty space, leaving no trace of its passage. When they sent a probe to investigate, the symbols on the hull fled to life, and the probe simply ceased to exist, not destroyed, but gently dissolved back into the basic elements of the universe. Their scientists, who had spent lifetimes studying the fundamental forces of nature, found themselves facing a completely new paradigm. The humans weren't using technology to overcome the laws of physics. They were working with those laws in ways that the aliens had never imagined possible. The ship's captain explained through the communication channel how humans had always had legends of great powers and magical abilities. What their ancestors had interpreted as magic was actually their species' first encounters with this mythic power. The stories of gods and heroes weren't just myths, they were humanity's earliest attempts to understand this force that existed alongside conventional physics. What made this revelation even more extraordinary was how the humans had managed to combine this ancient power with modern engineering. The Prometheus wasn't just a ship powered by mythic power, it was a perfect fusion of humanity's scientific understanding and their connection to this fundamental force of reality. The alien crew watched as the human ship created shields that didn't just deflect energy. They absorbed it, transformed it, and could even send it back in completely different forms. When they tested these shields with a carefully controlled energy burst, the Prometheus didn't just block it. The ship's mystical barriers turned the energy into a beautiful display of lights that danced across space like an aurora. As more data poured in, the alien civilization began to understand why their previous observations of Earth had missed this capability. The mythic power existed on a level their instruments simply weren't designed to detect. It was like trying to measure radio waves with a thermometer. They had been looking for the wrong thing all along. The humans explained that this power had always been there, flowing through their world like an invisible river. Their ancient civilizations had learned to tap into it in small ways, leading to the legends and myths that filled their history books. But it wasn't until they combined this ancient understanding with modern science that they finally unlocked its full potential. The alien observers realized they were witnessing something unprecedented in their galaxy's history. They had encountered many civilizations before, each with their own unique technologies and capabilities. But never had they found a species that could bridge the gap between what they considered rational science and what seemed like pure magic. As the Prometheus continued its demonstrations, the aliens began to understand that they weren't just witnessing a new form of technology, they were seeing the birth of a completely new era in galactic history. Humanity hadn't just advanced, they had unlocked a fundamental aspect of the universe that had been hiding in plain sight all along. The real shock came when the Prometheus began to demonstrate its true capabilities. The alien fleet had positioned themselves at what they considered a safe distance, but they were about to learn that no distance was truly safe when dealing with this remarkable human vessel. The ship's captain transmitted a polite warning before the demonstration began. What followed left even the most experienced alien observers speechless. The Prometheus moved in ways that should have torn any normal ship apart. It accelerated from complete stillness to speeds that rivaled light itself, but there was no sonic boom, no distortion of space, just a graceful dance through the void. When the aliens tried to track its movements, they discovered that the ship could be in multiple places at once, not through any trick of technology, but because it somehow existed in several dimensions simultaneously. Their sensors showed it both here and there, now and then, as if the very concepts of space and time were more like gentle suggestions than rigid laws. The most dramatic moment came when the Prometheus approached an asteroid field. Instead of navigating around the space rocks as any normal ship would, it simply passed through them. The rocks didn't break or explode, they simply parted like curtains, their very atomic structure temporarily shifting to allow the ship safe passage. The alien scientists watching these displays felt their understanding of reality crumbling with each new demonstration. The human ship wasn't fighting against the laws of physics, it was working with them in ways they had never imagined possible. When they fired their most advanced scanning beams at the ship, trying to understand its composition, the beams curved around the hull like water flowing around a stone. One particularly bold alien scientist suggested a weapons test, not to harm the ship, but to understand its defensive capabilities. After getting permission from both commanders, they fired their lowest-powered energy weapon at the Prometheus. What happened next defied explanation. The energy beam didn't just bounce off a shield, it was absorbed into those glowing symbols on the hull, transformed, and released as a shower of harmless light that painted the space around them in colors they had never seen before. The human crew seemed almost amused by the aliens' amazement. Through their communications, they explained that what looked like impossible technology to the aliens was simply humanity's way of asking the universe nicely to bend its rules a little. The ship didn't force its way through space, it negotiated with reality itself. When the aliens expressed their disbelief at the ship's power source, the humans shared readings from their own instruments. The data showed that the Prometheus wasn't technically using energy in the conventional sense. Instead, it was tapping into something that existed between the spaces of normal reality, drawing power from the same source that made the universe itself tick. The most mind-bending demonstration came when the ship showed how it could manipulate time around itself. Not in huge, dramatic ways that would tear apart the fabric of space-time, but in subtle, careful adjustments that let it slide between moments like someone slipping between raindrops. The aliens watched as the ship seemed to flutter in and out of the present moment, always in perfect control, never disrupting the natural flow of time. As the demonstrations continued, the alien observers began to notice something else, something that worried them even more than the ship's incredible abilities. Their long-range sensors detected similar energy patterns beginning to emerge from Earth itself. Patterns they had previously dismissed as background radiation or sensor ghosts were suddenly taking on new significance. What they were seeing wasn't just one advanced ship, it was the first visible sign of humanity's awakening to powers that had always been within their reach. The Prometheus wasn't an anomaly or a lucky breakthrough. It was just the first wave of a fundamental change in how humans interacted with the universe itself. The alien commander, watching all of this unfold, realized they weren't just witnessing the demonstration of an advanced vessel. They were seeing the moment when humanity stepped out of the shadows and revealed their true nature to the galaxy. And as the Prometheus continued its elegant dance through space, one thing became crystal clear. The balance of power in the galaxy was about to change forever. The revelation of humanity's mythic power capabilities sent shockwaves through the Meridian Confederation's cultural understanding. Their entire civilization had built its knowledge on careful observation and scientific advancement, but now they faced something that challenged everything they believed about technological progress. Back in their grand halls of learning, alien scholars frantically reviewed centuries of data about Earth. They had watched humans build fire, develop agriculture, create cities, and launch their first primitive rockets into space. But somehow they had completely missed the underlying power that had been present all along. The alien historians pulled up their earliest records of Earth observations. Ancient human artwork depicting people flying or performing impossible feats had been dismissed as primitive imagination. Stories of mythical beings and supernatural powers were classified as religious fiction. Now, looking at these records with fresh eyes, they'd realized they had been staring at evidence of mythic power all along. That archaeologists had documented countless human structures and artifacts, but had never understood their true significance. Those strange markings they found in ancient temples weren't just decorative. They were early attempts to harness the same power that now drove the Prometheus through space. The massive stone monuments that seemed to defy engineering logic suddenly made more sense. Humans had always had help from forces beyond conventional physics. The aliens began to notice patterns they had overlooked before. Throughout human history, there were countless accounts of unexplainable events, mysterious powers, and people who seemed to defy the natural order. They had dismissed these as superstition and folklore, but now they'd understood. Humans had been documenting their interaction with mythic power all along, even if they didn't fully understand it themselves. What really shook the alien scholars was realizing how this power had influenced human development. Every major leap in human civilization had traces of this energy, subtle but present. The rapid advancement of human technology wasn't just due to determination and intelligence. They had been unconsciously tapping into mythic power all along, using it in ways too subtle for alien instruments to detect. The alien scientists found themselves questioning everything they thought they knew about technological progression. Their civilization had developed through careful, methodical steps, each advancement building logically on the last. But humans had taken a different path entirely. They had grown alongside this mysterious force, shaped by it even when they weren't aware of its existence. As they studied more recent human history, the aliens began to understand why they had missed these signs. Humans had entered what they called an age of reason, where they deliberately turned away from the mythical and focused on pure science. But even then, the power hadn't gone away. It had simply gone underground, waiting for the moment when humanity was ready to embrace both science and mystery together. The most disturbing realization for the alien scholars was understanding just how wrong their assessment of human potential had been. They had classified Earth as a developing world, assuming they would guide humanity's growth like wise teachers helping a struggling student. Now they faced the possibility that humans had potential far beyond anything they had imagined. Their cultural experts worked day and night, trying to understand the implications of this discovery. How would this change their relationship with humanity? How could they interact with a species that could reshape reality itself? Their carefully crafted protocols for guiding developing civilizations suddenly seemed hopelessly inadequate. As more data poured in from the ongoing observations of the Prometheus, the alien civilization faced a profound identity crisis. They had always seen themselves as the most advanced species in known space, the guardians of galactic knowledge. But now they had to accept that their understanding of the universe was incomplete. The scholars reached a haunting conclusion. Humanity hadn't just developed a new technology. They had discovered a fundamental aspect of reality that the aliens, for all their advanced science, had completely missed. This wasn't just about one impressive ship or a new power source. This was about an entirely different way of existing within the universe itself. As the alien civilization struggled to adapt to this new understanding, one thing became increasingly clear. They weren't dealing with a primitive species that needed guidance. They were witnessing the emergence of a civilization that might soon be teaching them instead. In the depths of space, the moment everyone had been waiting for finally arrived. The Prometheus's captain agreed to a controlled demonstration of the ship's full capabilities, something that would forever change how the alien civilization viewed human potential. The demonstration began simply enough. The Prometheus positioned itself near a small asteroid that the alien fleet had selected as a test subject. What happened next left even the most experienced alien observers struggling to believe their eyes. The ship's hull began to pulse with those mysterious symbols, but this time they were brighter than ever before. The light didn't just glow. It seemed to reach out into space itself, like fingers of energy touching the very fabric of reality. The asteroid, a chunk of rock roughly the size of a small mountain, began to shimmer as though it were nothing more than a mirage. Then, without any visible propulsion or force, the Prometheus simply passed through the solid rock. Not around it, not over it, but straight through it as if the asteroid were nothing but a hologram. The alien instruments showed something impossible. The atoms of both the ship and the asteroid had somehow existed in the same space without interfering with each other. But that was just the beginning. The ship's captain announced they would now demonstrate their shield technology. The alien fleet was invited to fire their weapons, not their strongest ones, but enough to test any normal shield. They selected 3 ships to fire simultaneously, carefully calibrating their weapons to a level that would normally overwhelm any known defense system. The energy beams struck the Prometheus's shields, but instead of being deflected or absorbed, something extraordinary happened. The shield, which looked like a rippling curtain of golden light, caught the energy and transformed it. The destructive force of the weapons became a spectacular display of light and color, turning deadly energy into what looked like a cosmic light show. Next came the speed test. The alien fleet had positioned sensor buoys across a vast distance of space, ready to track the ship's movement. The Prometheus started from a complete standstill, and then it was simply everywhere at once. The sensor buoys picked up its signature at multiple points simultaneously, as if the ship had somehow copied itself across space. The alien scientists watching the displays nearly forgot to breathe. Their instruments showed the impossible. The ship wasn't just moving fast, it was bending space itself, creating shortcuts through reality that their most advanced theories had only dreamed about. Perhaps the most stunning demonstration came when the Prometheus approached a small star that had been dying for millennia. The ship extended what looked like tendrils of pure light toward the fading star, and for a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, gradually, the star's light began to strengthen. The aliens watched in amazement as their instruments confirmed the impossible. The ship was somehow feeding energy back into the dying star, temporarily reversing its decay. The alien observers noticed something fascinating during these demonstrations. The human crew wasn't just operating technology, they were working with it, almost like partners in a dance. The ship responded to their commands, not like a machine obeying programming, but like a living thing cooperating with its companions. When the aliens asked how this was possible, the human captain explained that the ship's power didn't come from dominating natural laws, but from understanding them deeply enough to ask for their cooperation. It wasn't about forcing reality to obey, it was about knowing reality well enough to work with it. As the demonstration continued, the alien fleet's commanders began to understand the full implications of what they were witnessing. This wasn't just advanced technology, this was a fundamental shift in how a species could interact with the universe itself. The humans hadn't just built a powerful ship, they had discovered a way to dialogue with reality on its own terms. The final demonstration was perhaps the most subtle but the most meaningful. The Prometheus created a small field of altered space where time itself flowed differently. Inside this field, they could see events that had happened minutes ago, like echoes in time. The human captain explained that this was just a tiny fraction of what was possible when you understood that time wasn't a rigid line, but a flexible dimension that could be gently persuaded to bend. As the alien fleet continued their observations of Earth, they began noticing something that filled them with both wonder and concern. The energy patterns they had detected from the Prometheus weren't unique to the ship. Similar signatures were beginning to emerge from Earth itself, like flowers blooming after a long winter. Their long-range sensors, now calibrated to detect these mysterious energies, picked up pulses of power from various locations across the planet. What they had previously dismissed as background radiation or sensor errors now took on new meaning. These weren't random energy spikes. They were signs of humanity's collective awakening to their true potential. The patterns appeared first in places their historical records identified as ancient sites of human civilization. The Great Pyramids, forgotten temples, and mysterious stone circles that dotted the planet's surface began emanating energy signatures that matched those of the Prometheus. It was as if these ancient structures were coming alive, responding to humanity's rediscovery of their true nature. But it wasn't just the ancient sites. Modern cities, too, began showing signs of this awakening. The alien observers watched in fascination as the energy patterns spread like a web across Earth's surface, connecting different locations in ways that defied conventional physics. It was as if the planet itself was joining in humanity's emergence. Their scientists noticed something else that challenged their understanding. The human population as a whole seemed to be changing, though in ways so subtle that their previous monitoring had missed it. People were starting to interact with their environment in slightly different ways. Objects would move without being touched, machines would work without power, and sometimes, just sometimes, the laws of physics seemed to bend ever so slightly around certain individuals. The alien civilization's greatest minds gathered to study these phenomena. They realized that humans weren't developing new abilities, they were remembering old ones. The mythic power hadn't suddenly appeared. It had always been there, waiting for humanity to reach a point where they could consciously reconnect with it. The most striking evidence came from their analysis of human children. The youngest generation showed natural tendencies to interact with this energy in ways their parents never had. They didn't need to learn it. They simply knew it, as if they had been born with an innate understanding of how to speak to the universe itself. Weather patterns around Earth began to show unusual characteristics. Storms would form and dissipate in ways that meteorological models couldn't predict. The planet's magnetic field showed fluctuations that corresponded with human activity. It was as if Earth itself was responding to humanity's awakening, adjusting its natural systems to accommodate this new phase of human evolution. The alien observers found themselves facing an unprecedented situation. They had come expecting to study a developing civilization, but instead they were witnessing the rebirth of something far more ancient and powerful. It wasn't just about one ship or one breakthrough. Humanity as a species was remembering who they truly were. Their cultural experts began warning about the implications. This wasn't a case of a primitive species discovering advanced technology. This was something far more significant, a civilization rediscovering its true nature. The power they were witnessing wasn't just a tool humanity had created, it was an integral part of who they had always been. The alien fleet watched as more signs of this awakening appeared each day. Sometimes it was subtle, a slight bend in light around a person, a moment where gravity seemed to hesitate, a sudden clarity in the air that their instruments couldn't explain. Other times it was dramatic, bursts of energy that lit up their senses, moments where space itself seemed to ripple in response to human activity. What amazed them most was how naturally it all seemed to happen. There was no chaos, no panic, no dramatic upheaval of society. Instead, humanity seemed to be gradually remembering something they had known all along, like waking up from a long dream. The power wasn't changing them, it was simply revealing who they had always been. As the alien civilization continued to monitor these changes, they realized they weren't just watching the development of a new technology or capability. They were witnessing the moment when humanity finally understood their true place in the universe, not as mere observers of cosmic laws, but as active participants in the very dance of reality itself. The pieces of the puzzle finally came together when the alien civilization began reviewing Earth's historical records with fresh eyes. What they had dismissed as myths, legends, and fairy tales suddenly took on profound new meaning. These weren't just stories, they were humanity's earliest attempts to document their relationship with mythic power. Ancient tales of heroes lifting impossible weights, shamans calling down rain, and mystics bending reality weren't products of primitive imagination. They were actual historical accounts, preserved through generations, describing early humans' interactions with powers their descendants would one day fully understand. The alien scholars pored over human literature with newfound respect. The great epics that spoke of gods and supernatural powers weren't just creative fiction, they were attempts to explain encounters with forces that humans could feel but couldn't yet fully comprehend. Every culture on Earth, they realized, had preserved pieces of this knowledge in their own way. What truly shocked them was discovering how this power had influenced human development throughout history. The construction of massive ancient monuments suddenly made more sense. Humans had unconsciously used mythic power to move and place stones weighing hundreds of tons. The mysterious precision of ancient astronomical alignments wasn't just good engineering. It was early humanity reaching out to cosmic forces they instinctively understood. Even more recent history needed to be reinterpreted. The Industrial Revolution, which the aliens had seen as purely technological advancement, showed signs of unconscious mythic power use. Inventors and scientists had been unknowingly tapping into these forces, their strokes of genius, actually moments of connection with powers they didn't yet understand. The most compelling evidence came from studying human art and music. Throughout history, humans had created works that seemed to capture something beyond normal reality. Now the aliens understood why. Artists and musicians had been channeling mythic power through their creations, encoding its essence in paintings, sculptures, and songs. Their anthropologists found patterns in human behavior that they had previously overlooked. The human tendency to gather in groups for ritual and celebration wasn't just social behavior. These gatherings had been unconsciously amplifying and directing mythic power, even if the participants didn't know it. Perhaps most significantly, they discovered that humans' legendary ability to survive and adapt wasn't just about determination or intelligence. In moments of greatest need, individuals and communities had instinctively drawn upon mythic power, using it in small but crucial ways to overcome seemingly impossible challenges. The alien researchers were particularly intrigued by human children's games and imagination. What they had dismissed as simple play now appeared to be young humans naturally experimenting with mythic power before social conditioning taught them to ignore it. Children's tales of imaginary friends and magical abilities weren't just fantasy. They were glimpses of humanity's true nature. Their linguistic experts found that human languages contained countless references to these powers, hidden in plain sight. Common phrases like mind over matter or moving mountains weren't just metaphors. They were echoes of humanity's forgotten capabilities, preserved in everyday speech. As they continued their research, the aliens began to understand why this power had remained hidden for so long. Humanity had entered an age where they chose to focus solely on material science, temporarily setting aside their connection to these deeper forces. But they had never truly lost it. The power had simply waited patiently for humans to remember who they were. The revelation transformed their understanding of human potential. Every field of human endeavor needed to be reevaluated. Scientific breakthroughs, athletic achievements, medical miracles, all showed signs of unconscious mythic power use. Humans hadn't just been developing technology, they had been slowly, steadily remembering their true nature. This understanding led to a profound shift in how the alien civilization viewed humanity. They weren't watching a young species take its first steps into a larger universe. They were witnessing an ancient power reawakening as humanity finally began to consciously embrace abilities that had been part of their nature all along. In the Grand Council chambers of the Meridian Confederation, the atmosphere was tense as leaders gathered to discuss the profound implications of humanity's emergence. The once simple equation of galactic politics had been completely transformed by the revelation of Earth's true nature. The Prometheus had returned to Earth, but its impact on the galaxy's power structure remained. The alien civilization, which had long seen itself as the guardian and guide of developing species, now faced a fundamental shift in its role. They weren't dealing with a primitive civilization that needed guidance, they were facing an ancient power reawakening to its true potential. Reports from their observation posts around Earth showed increasing signs of humanity's transformation. More ships like the Prometheus were being constructed in orbital shipyards, each one incorporating this blend of advanced technology and mythic power. But it wasn't just military capability that was changing. Every aspect of human society was beginning to embrace this rediscovered power. The Alien Council watched in amazement as humans began using their abilities to solve problems that had plagued their species for generations. Climate issues were being addressed as people learned to work with the planet's natural forces rather than against them. Energy crises disappeared as humanity tapped into powers that made traditional fuel sources obsolete. What impressed the alien observers most was how responsibly humans were handling their rediscovered powers. Instead of using these abilities for conquest or domination, humanity seemed focused on healing their world and expanding their understanding of the universe. The power hadn't corrupted them, it had made them more aware of their connection to everything around them. The alien civilization had to quickly adapt their diplomatic approaches. Their previous protocols for dealing with developing species were useless now. They needed new ways to interact with a civilization that could reshape reality itself. The age of being humanity's watchers and potential guides was over, now they needed to learn how to be partners. In their discussions, the alien leaders realized something profound. Humanity's emergence wasn't just changing Earth, it was transforming the entire galaxy. Other civilizations that had been watching Earth began reporting similar discoveries among their own people. It was as if humanity's awakening had reminded others of powers they too had forgotten. The most significant change came in how the galaxy's civilizations viewed reality itself. Humanity hadn't just discovered a new form of technology, they had demonstrated a completely different way of existing within the universe. The boundary between the possible and impossible had become fluid, shaped by understanding rather than limited by rigid laws. As the Alien Council debated their next steps, they received reports of human ships venturing further into space. These vessels, each powered by the same mysterious force as the Prometheus, moved through the cosmos with a grace that made traditional space travel seem crude in comparison. Humanity wasn't just reaching for the stars, they were embracing them as long-lost friends. The alien civilization found themselves in an unprecedented position. For the first time in their long history, they weren't the most advanced species in known space. But rather than feeling threatened, they felt a strange sense of excitement. Humanity's emergence hadn't led to conflict or chaos. Instead, it had opened up new possibilities for all species to grow and learn together. Their final conclusion was both humbling and hopeful. They weren't losing their place as leaders in the galaxy, they were gaining partners in the greatest adventure of all. Understanding the true nature of existence itself, humanity's awakening hadn't just changed the balance of power, It had transformed how every species thought about their place in the universe. As the council session ended, the alien leaders looked out at the stars with new eyes. The galaxy they had thought they knew so well had become a place of endless possibilities. And at the center of this transformation was Earth, not just a small blue planet anymore, but the birthplace of a power that would forever change the course of cosmic history. The age of watching and waiting was over. A new era had begun, one where humanity would help lead the galaxy's civilizations into a future that none of them could have imagined before the day a single human ship appeared in space and showed them that reality itself was far more wonderful and mysterious than they had ever dreamed.